Hi, I'm Emily Kuroda. I'm an actor. I also produce and write and direct. And this is my life story. I think one of the biggest problems that Japanese Americans have, I think, that might be specific to Japanese Americans in my generation, is because my parents were put into relocation centers and they lost everything. So that's why when I was born, I was not allowed to speak Japanese. I was not allowed to know too much about my culture or be too Japanese because they had gone through the discrimination during World War II, where they had to like destroy everything of their, culture. So I think that's the saddest thing. And it wasn't until I joined here at East West Players and we started doing like Kitawairaku plays, because they never talked about the relocation camps or, that nobody would cut my dad's hair or he was thrown out of Stanford. Nobody would talk about that. So when I joined here in 1978, East West Players, and I started doing these shows, that's when I learned about the relocation camps and all that went on. And then that opened the door for me to ask my dad what happened, And I still remember, I wrote him a letter because I was doing a show with Shizuka Hoshi, Mako's wife, and they said, I said, what is it? Her question to us was, what does it mean to be an Asian American man in America? So I was writing my dad, so I asked him, and then he wrote back, he goes, emasculated. He said, the war emasculated me. And I was like, oh. And so I think since my parents went through all of that, a lot of it bled through onto my generation. So that's why, my generation has a tendency to be a little quiet, to suck it up, to not cause waves, and to just try to assimilate, because that was the goal, was to assimilate so that we would be accepted and people would cut our hair and talk to us and stuff like that. So East West Players was started by Mako and a small group of, I think, 8 actors, because there were no roles for them in Hollywood. So they created East West Players. They did shows like Rashomon and a bunch of other plays. My husband joined like the second year after that, and I joined in 1978. And Mako was a place for us to do roles that we couldn't possibly do out in the real world, because when I was starting out, I was playing a lot of like geishas and stuff like that, and here we were doing classics. We were doing Chekhov, we did Sondheim, and we got to be leads, so it was great. And when I first started, Mako had us do everything. We had to stage manage, do props, sound, understudy. We did every shit job imaginable. But because of that, I think the people that I was with at the time were still like best friends. And it's like we went through the war together. And when we do a show now that, actually pays sometimes, you're just so grateful for the crew, for the designers, for everybody, that we are not divas. We are just grateful that, we're not having to do that stuff.
Suhobao hates Suli for life, would kill if not already on probation.
Suli, where Suho have horrible car crash and die.
Fine.
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 Don't forget Mother birthday next week.
Give her this and kiss on cheek for me. Bye-bye.
There's 2 schools of thought about doing accents and nationalities other than your own. I mean, we are actors, and I have portrayed a lot of people from different backgrounds. But I must, a friend of mine, Philip Gotanda, he's a playwright, He says, but it's really hard to get the essence of that culture unless you're from that culture. And I have to agree with him. And I have in the past, like I was auditioning for Sandra Oh's mom in Arliss. And I went in there and I said, why don't you get a Korean person? But I had already played Sandra Oh's mom before. She goes, oh, for God's sake, just cast her. So I was cast, But because as hard as I try, I cannot speak Korean. It sounds awful. And so many, many times I've said, you guys should just get a Korean person because I will try as hard as I can, but it won't be quite right. And the same with other nationalities as well. But who am I to turn down work? So if I am lucky enough to get cast in something like that, I have spent like days in Chinatown studying people and trying to get the sound and the rhythm of their speech. Even when they speak English, there's a rhythm to it. There's a placement to it. There's a way they move. There's a way they walk. So, I try to honor other people's culture as much as I possibly can. I hope I'm part of a possible new series, and she speaks with an accent and she's a maid, but I figure as long as I try to do it with some truth, and then and I will tell the director this is too much, or the writers, this is really not cool, and they'll change it. They don't know, they're not Asian, so I've learned that instead of getting pissed off, because I've had friends who they'll be on set and, the director or something will have them do something. And then the next day I see them and they say, can you believe it? They wanted me to do this. But I said, but you did it. Did you say anything? And they didn't say anything. The thing is, if you say something at that moment and you say it nicely, not confrontational, I think maybe 80% of the time they will change it. They did not know. And they'll say, thank you. I loved Gilmore Girls. I loved it, loved it, loved it. I'm very lucky to have had 7 years to live with this character, and I liked it because I think she was based on one of the producers or Amy's, I don't know, real person. So that's why there was nothing stereotypical, I don't think, about her. I remember I studied and studied and studied the Korean accent, and then I went in. I know she has an accent, but it's not a Korean accent. So I went in, and Amy, that's her show, she goes, what are you doing? I said, Korean accent. She goes, no. She goes, she's very military. So I went, oh, military. So then she just became very, by the book, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that was really cool. And the fact that she was written saying mean things, doing seemingly mean things, when it all came from this deep, deep pool of struggle and, caring. I thought, well, that's genius. And I was lucky enough to do it, to portray that person. But it was this beautiful characterization that she created that grew over the 7 years. And for that, I will be eternally grateful to her and to Keiko for being just a wonderful daughter, and everybody. It was like this big, great family, And we saw over there, you see people get married, you see their kids, grow up, and it's special. It's a really special thing that I was lucky to have, to say that it's part of my life now and who I am right now. My advice for young actors is read. Nobody reads anymore. I think reading is really important. I think knowing your history, knowing your family's history, knowing where they came from is important. because, you know, you can't just look forward. You can't just say, I want a series and I'm going to be funny and I'm going to be pretty and I'll go to the gym 2 hours a day. You're going to last, if you get a job, you're only going to last, you know, maybe 1 or 2 seasons. And so I think if you work on your core, on who you are, and who you are comes from who your parents are, your grandparents are, your culture. I think, you know, if you have that strong, and your friends and your family around you in life, if that is strong in your core, it will make you a strong career called acting, I think. So I can't stress that enough. Appreciate your family, your friends, your heritage, and read. Don't be a stupid actor.